I thought I had everything figured out. A beautiful wife named Harper, a 3-year-old daughter who lit up every room she walked into, and a comfortable life in our small suburban home. We were not rich, but we were happy. That was enough for me. I never imagined that happiness could be threatened by something as simple as a DNA test, especially one that was not even meant for me. My sister-in-law thought she could expose me as a fraud, destroy my marriage, and prove I was not the father of my own daughter. Instead, that test revealed a secret so devastating that it destroyed her own marriage and changed our family forever. I never thought she would go that far. Before I dive into how a single DNA test tore my sister-in-law's world apart, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about family secrets that should have stayed buried. Trust me, you will want to stick around for this one. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when everything still felt right. I met Harper 6 years ago at the tech company where we both worked. She was in marketing, I was in software engineering. We crossed paths at a project meeting, and I was immediately drawn to her. Not just because she was beautiful, but because of the way she listened when people spoke, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about ideas she was passionate about. There was a warmth to her that made everyone around her feel valued. We started dating after that meeting, taking things slow at first. Coffee dates turned into long dinners. Weekend hikes became our tradition. 2 years later, I proposed to her at the same trail where we had our first real conversation about our future. The wedding was small, just close family and friends, exactly the way we wanted it. A year after that, Lily came into our lives, and suddenly, I understood what people meant when they said your heart could exist outside your body. Lily was everything. Those big, curious eyes, the way she would scrunch up her nose when she laughed, the sound of her tiny feet running through the house at 6 in the morning. I worked as a software engineer from home most days, which meant I got to be there for the little moments. Reading bedtime stories, making pancakes on Saturday mornings, teaching her how to count using her toy blocks. Harper made everything better. Coming home to her smile and Lily's laughter was all I ever needed. But there was always one complication in our otherwise peaceful life. Diane, Harper's older sister. Diane was 5 years older than Harper, and from the moment I met her, I could sense something off. She was not outright rude, but there was a coldness in the way she interacted with me. A certain look in her eyes when I spoke, as if she was always evaluating me and finding me lacking. Diane had been married to Scott for 8 years when I came into the picture. Scott was a quiet guy who worked in finance. Nice enough, but he always seemed a bit distant, like he was there physically, but his mind was somewhere else. They had a son named Connor who was 6 years old at the time of this story. On the surface, their family looked perfect. Big house in a nice neighborhood, expensive cars, high-paying jobs. Diane loved to remind everyone of their success, often making subtle comparisons that left others feeling small. From the day Harper and I got married, Diane's attitude toward me shifted from cold to openly suspicious. At family gatherings, she would watch me with narrowed eyes. She would ask probing questions about my past, my finances, my intentions with her sister. Harper would defend me, telling Diane to back off, but it never seemed to help. Diane was convinced I was hiding something, though I had no idea what she thought that something was. The real trouble started at Lily's third birthday party. We had a small celebration at our house with family. Balloons, a homemade cake presents piled in the corner. Lily was wearing a little pink dress and running around with Connor, both of them laughing and playing. It should have been a perfect day, but Diane had to ruin it. She started with the comparisons. Connor could read by age 4. Does Lily even know her ABCs yet? The comment stung, but I brushed it off. Then she moved on to something more pointed. She was looking at Lily, studying her face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. She doesn't really look like either of you, does she? Maybe she takes after some distant relative. Harper jumped in immediately. Stop it, Diane. Lily is perfect just the way she is. But Diane just smiled that knowing smile that said she was not done. I noticed throughout the party that Diane kept taking photos of Lily. Not group shots, not candid moments of the kids playing together, close-ups of Lily's face zooming in on her features. It was strange, unsettling. Scott sat in the corner the whole time scrolling through his phone, saying nothing. He did not defend me, did not tell his wife to stop making uncomfortable comments. He just existed in his bubble of silence. When they finally left that evening, Harper apologized. I am so sorry about my sister. She has been acting weird lately. I told her it was fine, that I understood sibling dynamics could be complicated. But deep down, I knew this was not just sibling rivalry. Diane was building towards something. 2 months after Lily's birthday party, things escalated. Harper came home from meeting Diane for coffee, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. Her eyes were red, her hands were shaking. She sat down at the kitchen table and just stared at nothing for a long moment before she could speak. Diane thinks you are cheating on me. The words hung in the air like poison. She thinks Lily is not your daughter. She wants us to do a DNA test. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. This is insane. Diane has lost her mind. But Harper nodded, tears streaming down her face. She told me everything. At the coffee shop, Diane had laid out her suspicions like she was presenting a legal case. She claimed Lily did not have my eyes, my nose, anything that resembled me. She said she had been watching me, noticed me talking to a woman at the grocery store, and decided it looked too friendly. That woman was Amanda, my coworker, someone I had run into while buying milk. We had talked for maybe 3 minutes about a project deadline. How dare you say that about my husband, Harper had told her sister. But Diane would not let it go. I am just looking out for you. Some things do not add up. Lily does not have his eyes, his nose, anything. Harper had walked out of that coffee shop furious and heartbroken that her own sister would suggest such a thing. I held Harper that night while she cried. I know you would never do that to me, she said, and I promised her I never would. We decided to ignore Diane to let this blow over, but Diane was not the type to let things go. Over the next few weeks, Diane started a campaign. She began whispering to other family members, planting seeds of doubt. She called Harper's parents, mentioned her concerns in a way that sounded like genuine worry rather than accusation. Is everything okay between them? Harper's dad called us one evening, his voice careful. Diane mentioned some concerns. I had to explain that there was nothing to be concerned about, that Diane was making things up. But I could hear the doubt in his voice. Family gatherings became torture. Everyone looked at me differently. Not with open hostility, but with curiosity. With questions in their eyes, they were too polite to ask out loud. Diane kept feeding the fire. She told Harper's mom she had seen me talking to a woman at the grocery store, making it sound far more suspicious than it was. She mentioned how Lily did not look like me at every opportunity, loud enough for others to hear, but quiet enough to seem like she was just making observations. Scott continued his pattern of silence. He came to these family events, stood beside his wife, and said nothing. He did not defend me, but he also did not join her attacks. He was a ghost in his own marriage, present, but not really there. Harper started losing sleep. Dark circles appeared under her eyes. Why is she doing this to us? She would ask me late at night. I did not have an answer. All I could do was hold her and promise that the truth would come out eventually. Then came the Sunday dinner that changed everything. Harper's parents hosted a big family meal, something they did once a month. The whole family was there. Harper's parents, Diane and Scott Connor, me, Harper, and Lily. The dining room was full of forced smiles and awkward small talk. I could feel the tension like a physical weight. Halfway through the meal, Diane set down her fork and looked directly at me. If there is nothing to hide, why not just do a DNA test, clear the air once and for all? The room went silent. Everyone stopped eating, stopped moving. All eyes turned to me. "This is ridiculous," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I am not going to dignify this with a response." But Diane leaned forward, her voice dripping with false concern. "See, he is scared. Innocent people do not run from the truth." Harper's dad cleared his throat. Maybe it would put everyone's mind at ease. I looked at him, shocked that he was taking Diane's side. Harper turned to her father, hurt flooding her face. "Dad, you cannot be serious. You are taking her side." Her mother joined in. "Sweetheart, no one is taking sides. But if it ends all this drama, maybe it is worth considering." I looked around the table. These people? Harper's family were all looking at me with doubt. If I refused, they would think I was guilty. If I agreed, I was validating Diane's insane accusations. "Fine," I said finally. "We will do the test. But when it proves I am right, I want an apology from everyone at this table." Diane smiled, and in that moment, I saw something triumph in her eyes. "I will set it all up," she said. "In fact, let's all do it. Me, Scott, and Connor, too. Just to be fair, everyone gets tested, everyone gets cleared." Scott looked up for the first time, all evening surprise flickering across his face. But he said nothing. He just nodded slowly, like a man who had long ago given up fighting. The appointment was set for the following Tuesday. All 6 of us went to the testing facility. Me, Harper, and Lily on one side. Diane, Scott, and Connor on the other. The process was simple. A nurse swabbed the inside of our cheeks, labeled the samples, and told us results would be ready in 5 days. Those 5 days were hell. Harper tried to act normal, but I could see the strain on her face. She trusted me, I knew that. But the fact that we even had to do this, that her family had doubted me enough to force this test, had damaged something between us. I spent those days going through every emotion: anger at Diane for putting us through this, frustration at Harper's parents for not standing up for me, sadness that my daughter would one day learn about this moment this time when people questioned whether I was really her father. Diane sent me text messages during those 5 days. "How are you holding up? Nervous?" I did not respond to any of them. Scott, on the other hand, seemed to withdraw even further. Harper mentioned that her sister said Scott had been quiet at home, spending more time at work avoiding conversation. On day 5, we gathered again at Harper's parents' house. Everyone was there. The tension was suffocating. I held the envelope with our results in my hand. Harper's hand gripping mine so tight I could feel her pulse racing. Diane held hers along with Scott's and Connor's results. Her face was confident, like she had already won. I opened mine first. The paper shook slightly in my hand as I read the words. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. I am the biological father of Lily. I looked up at Diane, my voice steady. Satisfied, Harper threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. "I am so sorry you had to go through this." Harper's parents looked down at the floor, shame coloring their faces. "I am sorry, son," her father said quietly. "We should have trusted you." Diane's confidence faltered for just a moment, but she recovered quickly. "Well, good for you. At least now we know." She held out her hand for Scott's results. "Let's just get this over with." Scott opened the envelope slowly. His hands were steady, but his face had gone pale. He pulled out the paper, stared at it for a long moment, and then his expression crumbled. The silence that followed was deafening. Scott looked up, his eyes meeting his wife's. Probability of paternity 0%, not the biological father. Time stopped. No one moved, no one breathed. Diane snatched the paper from Scott's hands, her eyes scanning the words like if she read them enough times they would change. That cannot be right. There must be a mistake. Her voice was rising, panic creeping in. Scott stood up slowly, the chair scraping against the floor, the only sound in the room. Diane, his voice was hollow. "What did you do? This is wrong!" Diane was shouting now. "The lab made a mistake. We need to retest." But everyone in that room knew. Labs do not make mistakes with DNA tests. Not like this. Connor, oblivious to the weight of what was happening, looked up at his father. "Daddy, why is everyone yelling?" Scott closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there were tears there. "It is okay, buddy. Everything is going to be okay." But it was not okay. Scott turned back to Diane, his voice shaking. "How long, Diane? How long have you been lying to me?" Diane tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked around the room at all of us staring at her, and something inside her broke. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "It only happened once. I thought Connor was yours." Scott's laugh was bitter, painful to hear. "You thought, or you hoped," the truth came spilling out. 7 years ago, Diane had an affair with a co-worker named Brad. It was brief, she claimed, just a few weeks, right around the time she got pregnant with Connor. She was not sure who the father was, but she chose to believe it was Scott. She never told him about the affair, never gave him the choice, just hoped that biology would align with her wishes. "Who else knows?" Scott asked, his voice dead. Diane shook her head. "No one. Just me and Brad." "Does Brad know Connor might be his?" Diane nodded slowly. "He suspected. But I told him Connor was not his. I convinced him to stay away." Harper's parents sat frozen, unable to process what their daughter had done. Harper looked at her sister with a mixture of pity and disgust. "How could you, Diane?" And then it hit me. The pieces fell into place. "That is why you were so desperate to prove something about me. You were projecting. You wanted everyone else to look guilty so no one would look at you." Diane could not meet my eyes. She just stood there exposed with nowhere left to hide. Scott picked up Connor gently. "We are leaving." He did not look at Diane, did not say another word. He just walked out of that house with his son, leaving his wife behind in the ruins of the life she had built on lies. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Scott moved out that same night, taking Connor to stay with his parents. Diane tried calling, texting, begging for forgiveness. Scott did not answer. Within a week, he had hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. Despite everything, Scott wanted to maintain custody of Connor. The boy might not be his biologically, but Scott had raised him, loved him, been his father in every way that mattered. He was not going to abandon Connor because of Diane's lies. Brad, the biological father, was contacted and informed about the situation. He was shocked, angry, confused. He had suspected Connor might be his, but Diane had convinced him otherwise. Now he was being told he had a 6-year-old son he never knew about. Brad did not know what to do. He was not ready to be a father, had built a life that did not include children. The whole situation was a mess with no clean answers. Harper's parents called me a few days after the revelation. Her father's voice was heavy with shame. "I owe you an apology, a real one. We should never have doubted you. We let Diane's paranoia cloud our judgment, and that was wrong." Her mother got on the phone too. "You are a good man, and you have been nothing but good to our daughter and granddaughter. We are sorry." I accepted their apology because holding grudges would only hurt Harper. But the damage had been done. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. Harper and I had long conversations about everything that had happened. She felt guilty. I should have stood up for you stronger. I should have shut Diane down from the beginning. But I reminded her that she had stood up for me. She had defended me every time. This was not her fault. We decided to go to a few couples counseling sessions, not because our marriage was in trouble, but because we wanted to process the trauma of what we had been through. The counselor helped us understand that what Diane had done was a form of psychological abuse trying to make us doubt ourselves and each other. It helped to have someone validate that our anger and hurt were justified. Slowly, life began to return to normal. Harper and I focused on our little family. We took Lily to the park, read her stories at night, protected her from the adult drama that had unfolded around her. She was too young to understand what had happened, and we wanted to keep it that way for as long as possible. Our love, which had been tested in the worst way, came out stronger. We learned that trust is not about never being doubted. It is about standing firm when doubt tries to tear you apart. Diane's life, meanwhile, fell apart completely. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Scott was granted primary custody of Connor, with Diane receiving scheduled visitation rights. Scott made it clear that he still loved Connor, still considered himself the boy's father, and would raise him with the same care he always had. Brad, after much deliberation, decided he was not ready to be involved in Connor's life. He agreed to pay child support, but requested no custody or visitation. It was a coward's choice, but perhaps it was better for Connor not to be pulled between three parents. Connor struggled with the changes. He was angry at his mother, confused about why his family had broken apart. Scott got him into therapy to help him process everything. The boy did not understand the details, just knew that something his mom had done had caused his dad to leave. Diane tried to maintain a relationship with her son, but Connor was distant with her now, the trust between them damaged. Diane lost more than her marriage. The family that had once revolved partly around her success and confidence now saw her differently. She was the one who had lied, who had built her life on deception, who had tried to destroy someone else to hide her own guilt. She stopped coming to family gatherings. Harper's parents tried to maintain a relationship with her, but it was strained. Eventually, Diane moved to another city, took a new job, tried to start over somewhere. People did not know her story. As for me and Harper, we came out the other side, different but intact. We learned that accusations say more about the accuser than the accused. We learned that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than comfortable lies. We learned that the people who love you will stand by you, even when the world tries to tear you down. Looking back now, I realize that Diane's DNA test was never really about me or Lily. It was about her own fear, her own guilt eating away at her from the inside. She saw in me a mirror of her own deception and tried to shatter that mirror before anyone could see her reflection in it. But mirrors do not lie. DNA does not lie. And eventually the truth always comes to light. Sometimes the people who point fingers the loudest are the ones hiding the biggest secrets. Diane spent so much energy trying to prove I was unfaithful that she never stopped to think about what would happen if her own infidelity was exposed. One lie can destroy everything you have built. One moment of weakness compounded by years of deception can cost you your marriage, your family, your reputation. I think about Connor sometimes, that innocent kid caught in the middle of adult mistakes. He did not ask for any of this. He did not deserve to learn that the father he loved was not his biological dad, or that his mother had lied for his entire life. Scott is doing his best to shield Connor from the worst of it. to make sure the boy knows he is loved regardless of DNA. That is what real fatherhood looks like. Not biology, but choice. Choosing every day to show up to love to protect. Harper and I still live in our small house with Lily. We still have our Saturday morning pancakes and bedtime stories. We still take our weekend hikes. But we appreciate it more now. We know how fragile happiness can be, how quickly it can be threatened. We hold each other a little tighter, say, I love you a little more often. We do not take trust for granted. If you are watching this and holding on to a secret that could hurt someone, ask yourself this. Is it worth losing everything when the truth comes out? Because eventually it always does. You can run from it. You can hide it. You can try to bury it under years of lies. But DNA does not forget. Truth does not disappear. And the longer you wait, the more devastating the fallout will be. Diane learned that lesson the hardest way possible. She lost her husband, damaged her relationship with her son, alienated her family, all because she could not face the truth 7 years ago. What do you think? Have you ever been falsely accused of something? Or have you witnessed family secrets tear people apart? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family betrayal and the complicated truth about relationships. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it reminds you that honesty, no matter how difficult, is always worth it in the end. Take care of yourselves and the people you love. Life is too short for lies.